Hey, welcome to the wood shop. I've been getting some questions about that do-it-yourself free cat litter made out of sawdust and wood shavings and such. And I actually need to make up a new batch, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't even been drying it in the sun. I'm just too lazy. And it hasn't seemed to have any ill effects so far. The cat likes the litter just fine, and I've been using it for many months now, exclusively. One thing about it is that it easily lasts a week without stinking, which is nice. And I thought that was mostly due to the cedar before, but it still works just fine, even without having 30% cedar. But I will say if you do have 30% cedar, it smells a whole lot better. It's nice fragrance from the oils. So some of the questions were, does it clump? It does not clump. It is not a clumping litter. None of these wood-based ones clump as far as I've seen. Clumping is pretty much just the domain of clay-type litters. And that's fine, because clumping doesn't really have that much of a benefit. I know that they tout it as, encapsulating and sealing in the urine and that sort of thing, but the urine just absorbs into the sawdust and dries out, or even if it stays wet, it just doesn't smell that bad. So it doesn't really matter. And the wood is very absorbent, so it hasn't been an issue at all. You might be thinking, how do you clean a litter box if your litter doesn't clump? Well, you don't clean the litter box. You dump all of the litter out, and then you add new litter in. And for me, I do that once a week. Most of this is oak, and it's from planing. And yeah, you can see the shavings are pretty large, so this stuff will make really good litter. And I'll actually be refilling this bag of shavings for all the chicks I've been hatching lately, just to show you how this litter works and the anatomy of the litter. I'll do a few tests to show you how it reacts to liquid and show you my cat's actual litter. I'm going to go through a list of questions, some are which that have been asked and others are ones that I just think might be useful if somebody had asked. First one, how much litter does it take per week? I'm just going to use handfuls. I'd say that's about right. About 5 handfuls if you're grabbing like this. Next question, what happens when you add liquid? This is 500 milliliters or half of a liter. And I would guess this is probably about a week's worth of urine from my cat. So immediately, this is just kind of wet. And I guess you could say this is clumped. It's stuck together, but it's not like a tight clump made out of clay. And you can see here, there's some liquid on the bottom, but that's because I added this all at once. So I'm going to give this a little bit of time to absorb and then come back to it. This is my cat's actual litter box, and it's about a week old using this litter. It's not an ideal litter box for this type of litter. I picked this up a long time ago, and it's a pain to even clean out, but I only do it once a week, like I said. This is designed to spin and catch clumped up urine and feces, but clearly I can't do that. You can see what happens. The sawdust just kind of gets stuck. So this is not a litter you can sort, which, like I said, I'm fine with because I hate throwing clay in the woods or sending it to the dump, and I'm not going to pay $15 or like $1 a pound for wood litters. So this is what the poop looks like. Just looks like poop covered in sawdust. It's very dry. I can also tell you this doesn't smell at all. So it doesn't smell in the house, doesn't smell out here. Let's take a look at the pee. So as you can see, it looks like wet sawdust. It doesn't clump. Here you can see as I'm just vibrating this, it's all just kind of falling in little bits. And you can see there's actually a lot of urine in there. I'll go ahead and dump the entire contents. So after a week of use, this is pretty much what all of it looks like. It's just a mixture of wet sawdust and dry sawdust. And I can tell you when I grabbed just that scoop of wet stuff, it did smell. But as I'm sifting through this, it just smells like pine. So there's not a whole lot to it. It's pretty much just wet sawdust. Dry or wet, or if mixed, tends to kind of even out. And the poop dries out, doesn't smell. And of course for me, because I do so much woodworking, it's completely free. And you can see this is actually much finer than the other batch that I just made up. So this had a lot more absorbency because it has a lot more surface area. So I'll have to take a look at how the other one's doing. So with very little agitation, just what I was showing you earlier, it looks like this has evened out quite a bit, and it's only been about 5 or 10 minutes. Yeah, the water is pretty much absorbed. So again, it's just, you know, wet sawdust. You can't scoop it out in a normal way that you would do with a clumping litter. It just absorbs and then it's wet until it dries out. And just the water vaporizing from my cat's litter box would probably mean it would be half this wet. Actually, this oak smells fantastic. I don't think a lot of people know what oak really smells like. You might get it like kilned at the hardware store, and it doesn't have that much fragrance left because the oils are mostly gone because they heat kiln it. And I always air kiln, which basically just means I air season. And it takes like 6 months to a year, but the sawdust smells so amazing. It smells cinnamony and vanilla-y and a little bit spicy. It's just fantastic. This particularly smells cinnamony. I don't know what it is about oak, but it just smells really, really good compared to any other wood I've really worked with. Actually, I take that back. Buckthorn, when you first cut it down, it smells like cherries. It's it's really, really good. Makes me want cherries the entire time I'm working it. Once it actually dries out, it doesn't really smell like cherries anymore, but initially it smells really, really good. Anyway, so I've been mixing this for a little while, and yeah, I'd say about this much shaving, especially because it's such a large shaving compared to the other one, it's about enough to fully absorb the 500 milliliters of water all at once. All of this is moist, but you know, about a week's worth of urine all at once. I'd say those 5 handfuls absorb very well. Tatay. You having fun eating all those flowers? Eating all the landscaping? These goats are only good goats because they haven't yet figured out how to jump on cars. Here's a quick side-by-side comparison. This was mostly pine, and this was mostly just sawdust. This is mostly oak, and it's mostly from planing, which is really, it's more like cutting away shavings, whereas this is more just annihilated. Anyway, I've made a nice mess on my lawn, so I don't think it's gonna keep any critters away, unfortunately. It'd be nice if I could find something that would keep foxes and stuff away consistently. So I hope that answers your questions about this wood litter. It's really just sawdust. You can add your 30% cedar if you have it. You can add diatomaceous earth or baking soda if you want, if you're having issues controlling odor. You know, it's just a very basic litter and it works fine, and the way you clean it is like this. There you go. And then you just add more to it. You know, it's not something you're gonna wanna sift through. So if you have any more questions, feel free to ask in the comments, and I'll do another follow-up video if you want me to do any more tests. But offhand, you know, you can do this test pretty easily yourself. Just get some sawdust and see how well it works. Shavings may be better. It's really going to be whatever you have laying around. Somebody had asked about using those wood burning pellets, and my thought offhand with that is they're often coated in paraffin wax, you know, because they are pressed together and that's used as the binder. And it also helps them burn. But my thought is because they have that coating of paraffin, it's probably not going to allow much absorption. Again, it depends on where you get them because they use different binders depending on where you get them. You might be able to go to a friend's house who does some woodworking. You might be able to go to a lumber yard and get some sawdust. or even maybe a Home Depot or a Lowe's or something like that, and ask them if you can have the sawdust. The only problem with that is you're going to get stuff from plywood. And that's not necessarily a bad thing on its own, but some of the plywood has formaldehyde urea, and it's not great to put formaldehyde in your house. And I would bet that most of the stuff they cut is going to be plywood. Some kind of lumberyard in general, probably you could get something better. To be clear, it's not like I went through all the litter options and chose sawdust as the most ideal litter. It's simply that I generate sawdust, so I use sawdust, and I was sick of paying so much for cat litter. One other option that somebody had brought up before, they use wood shavings that come in these really large packages that are used for barns like horses and that sort of thing. And you can get those really cheaply from farm supply stores. So another option for getting your hands on some wood shavings would be going to a farm supply store and picking up something designed for horses or pigs and that sort of thing. And that would probably work fine for cats as well. So if this helped you out, or if you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe. And I'll go ahead and link the first original video in the description, as well as on the end screen for this video. Thanks for watching. Baby chickens.